Hey beautiful, I hope you're taking care of yourself. So Wuthering Waves is bringing negative status effects, new combat mechanics, and some juicy buffs. Zani doesn't want to waste more time. Let's start the video. So, Kuro is introducing a fresh combat mechanic called negative status. Basically, certain attribute attacks can now slap a negative status onto your enemies. There are 6 types, each with different effects. Let's break it down with our new bestie in version 2.1, Phoebe. She's bringing the Spectro Frazzle Effect, and trust me, this thing is as annoying for enemies as time-gated events are for players. Certain Spectro attacks will inflict stackable Spectro Frazzle. Once applied, it does Spectro damage over time at regular intervals. But here's the kicker. This damage depends on your Resonator's level, the enemy's defense and damage resistance, and the number of Spectro Frazzle stacks. And no, your attack and crit rate don't matter here. Now let's talk about Spectro Rover, because our dear Rover is getting in on the Frazzle party too. When Rover Spectro has more than 50% of diminutive sound, they can perform an enhanced resonance skill that inflicts 2 stacks of Spectro Frazzle along with Shimmer. Shimmer is interesting because it prevents Frazzle stacks from decreasing when dealing damage. So basically, the enemy is stuck in a never-ending cycle of suffering. And if that wasn't enough, Rover's Resonance Liberation just dumps 6 stacks of Frazzle on everything in range. If that doesn't sound broken, I don't know what does. But let's not forget the queen of Frazzle herself, Phoebe in Confession status. This girl is a menace. Her heavy attack, Starflash, instantly applies 5 stacks of Spectro Frazzle on an enemy, and when she uses Resonance Liberation, boom, 8 stacks. And here's the real kicker. If multiple Resonators apply Spectro Frazzle on the same target, the damage is based on the highest level Resonator. So, make sure to level up your characters to 90 for maximum damage output. Now here's where things get really fun. Negative status effects don't just torment enemies, they also buff certain Resonators. Phoebe, when in Absolution mode, gets some crazy bonuses against enemies with Spectro Frazzle. Her heavy attack, Starflash, deals even more damage, and under Absolution status, she can spam it 4 times in a row. Even her outro skill gets an upgraded damage multiplier. So, the lesson here? If you're not making full use of negative status, you're missing out on free damage. Zani is definitely pulling Phoebe's leg. So, are you guys pulling Phoebe's too or not? And it doesn't stop at characters. Certain weapons, Sonata effects, and echo skills can actually enhance negative status effects even further. So, your weapon choices just got a whole lot more important. No more just slapping on whatever has the highest numbers. You actually need to think now. Now let's talk about element buffs, because Kuro decided to give some elements extra spice. Arrow Erosion is a new effect that lets arrow attacks stack up and deal arrow damage over time. The more stacks you build, the more damage it does. Havoc Bane, on the other hand, is straight up evil. It accumulates stacks over time, and once it maxes out, it explodes. But that's not all. After it detonates, it spreads to nearby enemies. So, it's basically a walking time bomb. Fusion Burst works similarly, where it builds stacks, and once it maxes out, it triggers an explosion of fusion damage. Then there's Glacio Chafe, which is actually insane. As enemies accumulate stacks of Glacio Chafe, their movement speed gradually decreases until they hit the max stacks, and then they just freeze solid. Yap, Freeze CC Electro Flare is another nasty one. While active, it actually weakens the enemy's attack, and the more stacks they have, the weaker they get. So, stacking this on a boss could literally make them hit like a wet noodle. With all these new mechanics, buffs, and strategic combos, combat in Wuthering Waves is about to get way more dynamic. So, whether you're a meta chaser, theory crafter, or just here to watch enemies suffer, this update is gonna be a blast. That's all for today. If you made it to the end, you're an absolute legend. Now go prepare your builds, and Zani will catch you in the next one.